Okay, let's talk about DevOps. It can feel like this massive, tangled knot of tools, concepts, and buzzwords. But what if you had a map? Well, today, we're going to unravel that knot together and give you a really clear path forward.
So what does it actually take to become a DevOps expert? It's a great question, right? Because you look at the landscape and it's just overwhelming. There's a new tool popping up practically every week, and the whole field is always shifting. It's tough to know where to even begin.
And that's exactly where the official DevOps roadmap comes in. Now, don't think of this as some scary, rigid checklist you have to complete. Instead, think of it as a map for an incredible journey. And today, I'm going to be your guide. We're going to walk through it step by step and make sense of every single stage. We've broken down our tour into 5 key stages. First, we'll lay the DevOps foundation. Then, we'll get into mastering the infrastructure. From there, we'll build out the automation pipeline. After that, we'll see what it takes to operate at scale. And finally, we'll peek into the future by exploring some modern frontiers. Sound good? Let's dive in.
All right, our first stop, the DevOps foundation. You know, just like you wouldn't build a skyscraper on a shaky foundation, you can't build a robust, scalable system on weak fundamentals. These are the absolute ground-level essentials you've got to know before you can build anything else.
And that foundation, it really starts with language. Look, you don't need to be some master software architect, but you absolutely have to speak the language of automation. Python and Go are huge right now. They're incredibly powerful, but also pretty straightforward for scripting. Getting comfortable with at least one of these is, frankly, non-negotiable.
Next up, you've got to know your way around an operating system. And let's be clear, almost everything in the DevOps world runs on Linux. You need to feel at home on the command line, using tools like Bash to navigate systems, check on processes, and edit files on the fly. This isn't just a tool, it's going to be your primary workspace.
So how do you get a whole team of people working on the same code without it turning into total chaos? The answer is a version control system, or VCS. And in this space, the undisputed king is Git. Seriously, think of it like a time machine for your code. It lets you track every single change and work together with your team seamlessly.
Okay, so you're using Git to manage your code, but where does that code actually live? Well, it lives on platforms like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. And these places are so much more than just storage. They're the central hubs for collaboration, for code reviews, and, as you're about to see, they are the launchpad for all of our automation. So with our foundation firmly in place, it's time to build the world where our applications are actually going to run. This part is all about mastering the infrastructure. Everything from the physical servers of the past to the modern cloud of today.
You know, at the front line of pretty much any application, you're going to find a web server. But they do so much more than just serve up web pages. Tools like Nginx and Apache act as the traffic cops. They're the reverse proxies directing requests, the load balancers spreading out the traffic to prevent overloads, and the caching service that make everything feel fast. They are the gatekeepers to your application.
Containers. Containers solve that classic age-old developer headache, the, well, it works on my machine problem. Docker's the big name here, and what it does is package up an application with all its dependencies into one neat little box. And that means it runs the exact same way on a developer's laptop, on a test server, or in production. That consistency is everything.
So where are we running all these servers and containers? Well, these days, it's almost always in the cloud. You've got the big 3, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and they offer this huge playground of services. AWS basically has the most tools for any job you can imagine. Azure is a huge favorite for big companies that are already using Microsoft products. And Google Cloud, they really shine with their best-in-class container and data services.
Okay, so we have our code and we have our infrastructure. Now for the really cool part, connecting them through automation. We're about to build the engine, the CI/CD engine that takes code from a developer's keyboard and delivers it to the world, safely, reliably, and automatically. You know, setting up servers by hand is just slow, and it's so easy to make a mistake. So instead, we use infrastructure as code tools like Terraform to write down exactly what servers and resources we need. Then, we use configuration management tools like Ansible to define the exact state those servers should be in. It makes our entire setup repeatable, predictable, and way less stressful. This right here, this is the heart of DevOps. This is the CI/CD pipeline, continuous integration and continuous delivery. It's basically an automated assembly line for software. A developer commits their code. That automatically triggers a build, which then runs a whole suite of tests. And if, and only if,
everything passes, it automatically provisions the infrastructure and deploys the new application. It's beautiful.
Now, to actually run that pipeline, you need an orchestrator, and you've got a lot of great choices. Tools like GitHub Actions and GitLab CI are awesome because they're built right into the platforms where your code already lives. Jenkins is the old-school classic. It's incredibly powerful, and you can customize it to do anything. And then you have others like Circle CI that offer a really sleek, modern cloud-native experience.
So, our pipeline is humming along, it's delivering our application, everything's great. But what happens when that application gets really popular? I mean, managing a handful of containers is one thing. Managing thousands or even tens of thousands? That is a completely different ballgame. This section is all about how you maintain control as you grow.
To manage all those containers at scale, you need an orchestrator, and the undisputed industry standard is Kubernetes. Now, you can run it all yourself for maximum control, but let me tell you, it's complex. The much easier path for most people is to use a managed service from a cloud provider, like GKE from Google or EKS from AWS. They handle all the hard parts, so you can just focus on running your containers.
Here's a simple truth. You can't fix what you can't see, and that's why observability is so critical when you're operating at scale. We usually break it down into 3 areas. You've got infrastructure monitoring with tools like Prometheus to watch your CPU and memory. You've got log management using something like the Elastic Stack to collect all the logs from your applications, and then you have APM, or Application Performance Monitoring, with tools like Jaeger, which let you trace a single request as it flies through your entire system.
Well, we've built our foundation, we've deployed our application, and we've figured out how to operate it at scale. For our final stop on this tour, let's look over the horizon a bit at some of the really cutting-edge practices that are defining the future of how we all deliver software.
GitOps is really the logical next step from infrastructure as code. The idea is simple, but it is so powerful. Your Git repository becomes the one and only source of truth for your entire system. If you want to change what's running in production, you change the code in Git, and that's it. Automated tools like Argo CD constantly watch the repo and make sure reality matches what's written there. This gives you a perfect, auditable, version-controlled history of everything.
But what if you could just forget about servers and containers and operating systems altogether? I mean, what if you could just focus on writing code? That's the amazing promise of serverless. With platforms like AWS Lambda, you just upload your code, and the cloud provider handles literally everything else required to run and scale it for you. It's a huge shift in focus from managing infrastructure to purely building application logic.
And that really brings our whole tour full circle. Think about it. From learning a scripting language and getting good at the command line, all the way to building automated pipelines, running on the cloud, and operating at massive global scale. That entire journey, that whole lifecycle, that is the essence of DevOps. We've covered a ton of ground. But this roadmap isn't set in stone. It is constantly changing, with new tools and brilliant new ideas emerging all the time. This map gives you what you need to navigate the landscape as it exists right now. But the real question is, what new paths will you help create for tomorrow?